This, ladies and gentlemen, is football.
Hello and welcome back to Total A-Leagues. I'm Vince Rugari. Tommy Oar is here again. What's cracking?
Not much. Great to be back. So much to talk about. Huge games this weekend. So
I think if I can count correctly, Tommy, and I'm not always confident about that, 5 games left in the season, really.
Yep.
Two,
right.
Yeah,
that's right.
Not too bad for me.
Overestimated you.
There you go. No, today's show will obviously look back at the elimination finals and look ahead to at least the first leg of the semi-finals coming up. Some big fixtures to get stuck into, and to help us do that, we've got, Tommy, I think our first return guest of the show, which is very exciting.
It is.
It's Western United coach John Aloisi. Welcome back, John. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me on again. I didn't know that I was the first person to come back on. You must be doing a good job.
We must be. It's an honour we'd only bestow to you, John.
Thanks.
To start with, how pleased are you, I guess, with your start to the final series at Western United? Obviously, a goal behind against Adelaide, but pretty quickly recovered and a strong win in the end.
Yeah, really pleased. Pleased with the performance, first of all, because, come finals time, it is different. And we've got a lot of young players that haven't experienced finals football before, but they performed really well. They went 1-0 down early. We know it's never easy to come from behind, especially in finals and in a one-off game, but the boys didn't let that affect them at all. They just kept on performing the way we've been performing majority of the season, and that first half we were outstanding, and then Adelaide threw a little bit at us in the second, but it was enough and we got the job done, which was really pleasing.
John, just looking forward to your obviously huge game this weekend against City. How do you prepare for this game kind of tactically? Because is it more just picking up where you left off last game? Because we know Melbourne City has had the edge over Western United earlier this season in the 2 games. But how do you psychologically prepare, and what do you think their weaknesses are that you can exploit?
Look, we prepare the same as we prepared last week. That we know it's 2 legs, so nothing should be finalised after the first leg. You hope not, anyway. But it's one of those games that we make sure that we're performing at our best, and we're playing the way that we've been playing majority of the season. Like I mentioned, we'll play on the front foot. We know that City are very good defensively, and also in attack they got individuals that can really hurt you. But it'll be a close game. It'll be a hard-fought game, and it's always like that against Melbourne City, and we're expecting a really tough contest.
John, you've obviously got a very young squad. We've spoken about that a lot on this show, and I think with the last interview that we had with you. Are you happy with how they've handled, at least initially, the pressure associated with finals? Because as you said, it's a different sort of game altogether, and for a lot of them, most of them, in fact, this is their first taste of it.
Yeah, really happy. Look, I thought that we started playing sort of our finals back against Sydney FC and Auckland, the last 2 games of the season, because if we didn't win those 2 games, then we wouldn't have had a chance of challenging for second, but also to finish as high as third. That gave us that home elimination final. So they were already preparing for it, and then that first game, you could just see that they didn't let the pressures get to them at all. And so I expect much of the same against City. And Noah Botic, young striker that hasn't really played at all in finals, stepped up on the big occasions. So that shows that he's got that next level in him. Reece Bozanowski hasn't really played at all in a final series, and this has been his breakthrough season. He stepped up. And Angus Thurgate, I know that he's a bit of a veteran of our league at only 24, but he hasn't played a finals game. That was his first finals game, and I thought that he really controlled the midfield well again.
There's no way Angus Thurgate is 24. That's just blowing my mind, to be honest.
What a season. I've always thought he was a very underrated player. But John, I want to ask you, this is a pretty broad question. About your coaching kind of journey so far and how you think you've kind of evolved tactically. And because I remember, obviously, you look back at the team that when you won the grand final with, and the football you were playing, you had a lot of older players in that squad. And if you compare it kind of with how you're playing now, the 2 kind of contrasting styles, I just want to ask you how you think your teams kind of have evolved since you've started coaching.
Look, we played the real attacking brand of football when we were at Brisbane Roar. Tommy, you were there with us, so we're a team that scored a lot of goals there. But then when I arrived at Western United, I had to adapt to the squad that I had and to the club wanting to achieve some success straight away. And so with that, I had to sort of adapt the way that I got my team to play, and we got that initial success. We wanted to win something. We won something in the first year that I arrived, and then from there it was a matter of time of actually trying to transition to the younger players and play this more exciting attacking style of football, which I believe is a good way of sustaining success and winning football games over a long period. And we're showing that. I think we scored 58 goals this season so far. We're creating a lot of chances. We're always on the front foot. We've got so much energy with and without the ball, and that's the way that I want my teams to play, and always loved my teams to play that way. But sometimes it's not possible with certain personnel you have.
Yeah.
John, you've obviously been coaching in the league for quite a while now. Just wondering what you see as some of the prevailing trends in the A-League in terms of the tactics. Do you see teams going in a particular direction? Where do you see it moving? And I guess I can broaden that out to football in general. Where do you see the main tactical trends as you watch the game at the moment?
Well, you just have to see Europe at the moment and the amount of goals being scored. I think that's happening all over the world. I think that a lot of teams are wanting to go as quickly as possible towards the opposition goal, which is great to see. Just watching the Classico the other day, 4-3 to Barcelona. Then you watch, Inter Milan against Barcelona, and a different tactical game. That one team's a bit more counter-attacking than the other team, but they're both quick moving the ball forward. I think as soon as you beat lines nowadays, that the teams want to go forward pretty quickly instead of like a few years back. It was a little bit more patient, which is great to see. There's still there's sides that do play a little bit more defensive. We've seen that a little bit in the A leagues with Auckland having a really good defensive record, and so has Melbourne City. But they also got the quality to go forward as well. But I see a more attacking brand of football now throughout the world.
Brilliant, John. Well, hopefully we see some more good attacking football from your side this weekend, mate. Good luck for the first leg and the rest of the final series, and thanks for jumping on again.
Cheers, John.
Thanks. Appreciate you having me on.
Always a pleasure to talk to your old boss, Tommy.
It is. He's always a friendly face in the media, but no, it's interesting hearing his comments, about football trends and how, transition, how dangerous teams can be in transition. Now, I think that's definitely what we're seeing in the A-League as well. I think that games are won and lost in transition. We've seen obviously the Wanderers have a lot of success, Auckland as well, and I think that's very much the template in what we've been seeing.
Yeah. Underrated, I think, still as a coach in this country. Like I know from the dressing room you shared, I know a lot of those boys as well and have spoken to them, and they all speak glowingly about John, including, might I add, Fahid Ben Kalfala, who's not an easy man to impress. I remember him telling me once that John was the best coach he's ever had.
It's true, and I think the thing that's so good about him is such a good temperament. The friendly face you see in the media is also the face you see every day working with him. But tactically as well, I think, you go into a game as a player of his knowing exactly what to expect, and you get confidence from feeling prepared because he kind of leaves no stone unturned in giving you all the information and giving you tactical, all the kind of hints and tricks to give you an edge against your opponent. So I think he's a fantastic coach and has a very exciting future in the game for sure.
So did you see some of that when they played Adelaide? Did you see that John Aloisi's preparations had sort of borne fruit in terms of the way they set up and the result they ended up getting?
Yeah, I think so. I think, when you looked at I think going into that game, they knew that they just kept doing what they were doing in the previous weeks. They were probably going to win. I think, they were obviously the much more informed team. They were scoring goals. They had two huge results to finish the season, obviously, big result against Sydney FC, for example. So I think that they were, a team going in full of confidence. And the thing that was impressive is going behind such a young squad, he said it himself, finding a way and not panicking in that situation and finding a way to keep the composure and just get back into the game and dominate the game from there on in. I think that was very impressive and probably holds them in good stead going into this weekend.
Yeah, I agree. So does Noah Bodic getting a hat-trick, at least officially.
That's
right. Might have some contentions about whether he should be credited with all three, but he was. That'll give him confidence. This is him speaking after the match on the weekend.
Striker, you always just be confident in your craft. just stay positive. Just know if it doesn't come this game, it's going to come next game and next game and next game. I've had a period where I haven't scored for 11, 12 games, and then that
used to happen to me all the time, bro. Don't worry.
Exactly. Sorry if I'm cold, I'm shivering as well, mate. It's freezing.
Yeah.
But yeah, once you get that first goal, then it just starts flowing, and obviously after that Auckland one, then it just carries on into this game.
Bit of talk about him as well this week. Tommy, he'll be pushing it to one side, but a link with FC St. Pauli in Germany as well. Do you find that a good move for him? I personally think Germany would be a good landing spot for him, mainly because he's been there before, so he shouldn't need to adjust.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think, the tactically and the environment there, I think that'll be a good fit for sure. Obviously a huge club, St. Pauli, got Jackson Irvine's there, as we all know. So now, if that came off, that would be an unbelievable move. But as you said, I'm sure that his undivided attention is on trying to win silverware with Western United this season.
Yep. We'll just quickly talk about Adelaide. Their season is done. Carl Viet is also done as coach now. They'll part ways, which is, as a South Australian, I can say a legend of that club. He's done a really good job, I think, over the last little period as well, bringing through and really changing the identity of the football club in terms of the profile of players and what they want to do. How do you rate their season? Because it wasn't that long ago that we were here wondering whether they could unseat Auckland FC on top of the table. They were top briefly, but man...
Yeah. Tale of two seasons, really. I think might have been January or around Christmas. The kind of wheels fell off, it seemed. And up until that point, they were probably the informed team in the whole competition. Every game, they were so exciting to watch. And, I think they weren't able to address their kind of glaring defensive issues, and that's ultimately what cost them. And, I think the team towards the end of the season started to lose confidence as well. When you're conceding more than 2 goals on average every game, that obviously does not great things for your confidence as a team. And unfortunately for him, he wasn't able to find a way to kind of stem that flow of leaking goals. But I think, the game against Western United was just more of the same story. I think that, they had their moments going forward. They scored 2 goals, but every time Western United attacked, they looked likely to score. And even if you look at the first goal Adelaide conceded, it was from a kind of a calamitous mistake, or lack of communication from 2 of the Adelaide players that created the opening, and that's kind of just been the story of the season.
Grade out of 10, like we did last week for the other eliminated teams?
If you asked me in January, it probably would have been a 9 out of 10, but it's going to sound harsh, but I'm going to say a 5 because, to go from first at Christmas or in January to being probably fortunate to get into the finals, if we're being honest. No, I think that, that it's to see that slide was disappointing, and I think a 5, just given the position they were in.
Yep.
Do you agree?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, 5 is harsh. They made the 6, so 6 seems like a good...
And Goodwin had a good season, had a few breakout players.
Yeah, Panakikianis I'm obviously a big fan of his, but, he's established himself as a really good A-League player. Goodwin, one of the signings of the season.
Yeah.
They've got some real problems, though, to figure out.
They do.
And we don't know who's going to figure them out either, is the other thing.
That's right.
The next coach hasn't been identified. The rumour from Robbie Cornthwaite is that it might be Ayrton Andreoli, who is the assistant coach and helped bring through some of the young players who we really enjoy watching at Adelaide United over the last few years, including Nestor Irankunda.
Yep.
So we'll wait and see what happens there. But for now, we can hear probably one last time for a little while, unless he shows up at another place. Carl Viet.
I think it'll most really take me a week or 2 before it hits me. Look, very proud of my time at the club. Very proud of the direction that I've put the club into. I just hope that this identity that we've got at the moment stays. I hope it doesn't get disbanded or lost with whoever comes in next. Look, I think in February when we lost all those young boys away, then we lost Ryan Kiddo for a few weeks. We lost Dylan Pierres for a few weeks. So we're a little bit understaffed there, and then a few other things were happening at the training ground that just sort of knocked the stuffing out of the players, and we just couldn't get back on track.
Interesting comments, Tom.
They are. I think, obviously, touching on some things at the training ground. I mean, who knows exactly what went on, but I mean, that was evident to see in their performances, and obviously disappointing to see him, move on. And I think he's been a great servant to not only Adelaide but the A-League.
So this game, Melbourne City, Western United, both legs will be at Amy Park.
Yep.
How do you see this one playing out? It's interesting from a tactical point of view again, because both these teams are very good at winning possession high up against the other team.
They are. And, Melbourne City has had the edge over Western this season. I think they've won both of their games, 2-0, 1-0. Western United hasn't scored too many goals historically against Melbourne City as well, which is something I'm sure they'll be on their mind. But no, I think in this game we can expect Melbourne City to probably have the lion's share of possession, and Western United to kind of look to counter-attack. I think it'll be interesting to see what Western United does in terms of who's going to play with Botic up front. They've obviously got Ibasuki, who came off the bench last game, and Michael Roos as well, who's done really well since coming in. And I wouldn't be surprised to see Michael Roos keep his spot in the starting lineup, just because his mobility in terms of in transition could be a good asset for them. And Melbourne City has, when they have looked defensively frail this season, it has been in transition. So, yeah, it'll be interesting. And obviously you said over 2 legs as well. I think both teams will probably be a little bit cautious in their approach to the first game.
Yeah. Let's move on, Tommy, to the other elimination final. Look, a bit of a fizzer, to be honest, in the end, because we were all really excited about the Wanderers. Could they keep that unbeaten run going? Could they leverage a good crowd in the house at Parramatta for this one? And is it as harsh as just saying they didn't turn up?
I think so. I think Melbourne Victory tactically had the better of the two teams, and I think a lot of it can go down. You just saw it in the image. Daniel Arzani, I think he was the circuit breaker for Melbourne Victory and the catalyst for a lot of their good attacks. And what a finish again from Boss! What a season he's having.
He's catching up on his brother.
He is, and I think is that 3 games in a row now he's scored. So no, he's in red hot form. But yeah, back to the Wanderers. I think they just didn't have that kind of intensity in the front third that we've seen from them in over the last 12 weeks when they were unbeaten. And in the biggest game, it was obviously disappointing that they couldn't reproduce that. I think if you look, for example, at the performances of both of the clutch players, Daniel Arzani against Milanovic, Arzani probably had his best game of the season. Milanovic probably had his worst, and I think that was kind of what unfolded in that game, and probably why Melbourne Victory won.
It's a bit of a concern when you zoom out a little bit, and a contrast with Victory as well, because Victory is a club that, historically when you think of them, that in big moments, big games, finals, etc., they always stand up. They win the ones that you don't think they'll win.
Yeah.
And most famously, they're crashing
Kevin
the party. And, he's done it a few times. But I'm thinking of, the game in Newcastle.
Yeah, but he was the manager, I think, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was.
Yeah. But, you're right. And I think, winning it from 5th, I don't think any team's ever done that before. So
I wouldn't put it past them.
That's right. I wouldn't either. And they have a lot of those big characters in the team, big personalities, and we've spoken about it on this show a few times this season, where sometimes it can be kind of a hindrance or it can be an obstacle having more egos in your team. But I think when it comes to finals time, you can see they got the grit between their teeth. They're determined. I think it plays to your advantage because these players, they're not afraid of the big occasion, and they put in one of their best performances against the Wanderers. And I think Auckland will be nervous going into this game.
The flip side is that the Wanderers have got a bit of a problem here in the same department, because come next season, the final series, should they make it, and if they win one, that'll be 10 years between finals wins, which is crazy. The last time they did 2016, I think, against your mob.
Against
a very crazy game.
That's right. So.
Before that, they lost 2 grand finals, and they lost another one after that. And it's like, when a club starts failing in those big moments over a period of time, I don't know. It's sort of
since the Asian Champions League win with Popper, I think the A-League history, it's starting to become a little bit of a thing, and you can just ask Spurs fans that you don't want that to kind of manifest into something bigger, into kind of a...
Giorgio Chiellini said that it's the history of the Tottenham. We might be able to say it's the history of the Wanderers.
Well, I'm sure that they'll be looking to move, shake that off. But, the performance on the weekend did nothing to do anything but that.
What do you think of the decisions made from the bench, Tommy? Particularly second half, Alan Stajic waited a little bit, probably longer than most people thought was appropriate, to bring in the subs, including Juan Mata, who came on and I guess we can say had a mixed game.
Yeah, well, I think, if you look at the fact that they were 2-1 down at half-time and it took until the 70th minute in the second half to register a shot on target, I think, hindsight's obviously an easy thing. So it's easier to sit here and say he should have made the substitutions earlier. He obviously put faith in the players who have, for the few months before this game, performed for him. I think he gave them every opportunity to perform, and the fact they couldn't manage to find a way to score is obviously, it's easy to criticise him now. But I think ultimately, their big name players just didn't turn up. And if we look at the contrast with Melbourne Victory, I think one thing that Melbourne Victory did really well that Wanderers didn't is they found a way to isolate their best players one-on-one against the fullbacks. And I think, there's not many times in this game I can remember Milanovic being one-on-one against the Victory fullbacks running at him at pace. And, that's obviously partly down to his performance, but also as a team, they tactically weren't able to find a way to get him in those positions. And I think that's something that you have to give Melbourne Victory a lot of credit for, is they limited that space for them, and ultimately that's kind of just what unfolded.
You spoke about Daniel Arzani before, man. How good's he been since the March window?
Oh, unbelievable. And, since Popovic kind of gave him, a huge rap as well.
It's not even since then, though, because there were a couple of months there where he was still not great.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't until Popper actually called him up when we all thought,
out of the blue,
why are you doing this?
Yeah.
That's when he started playing.
Yeah.
And when he's like this, no one ever doubts the ability of Daniel Arzani. Everyone can see what a player he is. The doubt is about the output and the consistency and the attitude. And when he's doing it like this, man, it's a joy to watch.
And he's so, the way he takes players on, there's nobody like him in the league.
Who's making that sort of that cheeky backheel pass in this league at the moment?
Exactly right. And the thing that impressed me in this game as well was, the way that he was also defensively doubling up on Milanovic. He was also doing a lot of the dirty work, the hard yards, which we haven't always associated with him. And now he's playing at the top of his game, and obviously, from a Melbourne Victory perspective, they're going to need him, I think, against Auckland to have this kind of form to win this game. But from a Socceroos perspective as well, it's fantastic that he's in this form.
100%. He was certainly feeling himself and the victory after the game on the weekend. This is some of what Daniel Arzani had to say.
I think there's a lot of unsung heroes in the team as well. I think in Sarah Youngboy, since he's come in, has been unbelievable every game for me, personally. Valadon, till the end there, fighting, winning balls. I think it's the team as a whole. Everyone put in an amazing shift tonight. Tactically, we were good, and there were 13 games unbeaten. We've had a bad run of form, but I do think the better team won tonight. We've known from the beginning that we are our own best friends and our own worst enemies. I think there isn't a team in the league that can beat us on our day. The focus has always been on us and what we can perform on, what we can put out on the day. And if we come in strong and we play like we did today, I can't see another team beating us. Look, we're super excited for it. We know what to expect with them. They're very, very compact. They're very hard to break down defensively. And they kind of hit you on the break and they work off set pieces. So we're going to have to look at that, adjust tactically going into that. But I'm really excited. I think it's a great challenge and I wouldn't have it any other way.
Auckland have to have a plan for him, don't you think?
Well, I think the matchup, if you think about, the likes of De Vries and Sakai, who have probably been the two best fullbacks in the whole league, those two players against Valupe and Arzani, I think that's where this game is going to be won and lost for both teams, because that is such a mouth-watering prospect. And I don't think Auckland will give Arzani as much opportunity to face forward and run at defenders. I think that, you can expect both of those fullbacks to be really tight. But, Arzani, when he's in this type of form, you wouldn't put it past him to find a way to get the better of him.
He did have some cramp on the weekend, though, Tommy. The boys on the A-League download had a bit of a chat about that this week, and Juan Mata's, pretty disappointing miss, although I would say it might have been a bobble there.
Big bobble,
well.
I think. Yeah.
The Arzani cramp is so funny because we've all
and
got
it happens
cramp.
like they're having a chance.
Yeah, I know,
and suddenly you just see this salmon.
but because the winger's going, okay, well, I'll see what I can do. Oh, it's very polite of him to lie down at this stage. And then Juan Mata has his moment, right? In a season where he's had no moments. Yep. And you're like, and of course, elite players hammer one into Rose Ed, don't they? But he really hammered it into Rose Ed. You just think, for Arzani, he must think, don't score there. Just when I'm collapsing like that. But it was just a hilarious moment of football, I thought.
Oh, look, if he doesn't get a Hydrolite endorsement after that, then something's wrong. I don't know, he should change his management, but that was unbelievable. And then it falls to Mata and you think, this should be on target
it's
at the very least.
It's scripted, right? It's scripted.
It is scripted. And, he'd be upset. He'd be filthy at himself, right? A player of his level and standard, you'd want to at least be hitting the target.
Good
was
pass.
A bit of a sniper in the crowd, I think.
Yeah, didn't mind it. The other big talking point out of this one, Tommy, the post-match scenes.
Yeah.
A handshake, bit of a disagreement between Alan Stajic and Arthur Dillers. What'd you think when you saw this?
Yeah, obviously, emotions are running high after the game. It reminds me of the Conte one in the Premier League a few years ago as well. Exactly, and that, I think it was obviously the A-League equivalent. But emotions are running high. I think both coaches would have forgotten it pretty quickly. But you'd like to think that you can be a bit more gracious in defeat potentially from Stajic. But at the same time, I'm sure he probably regrets it as well.
Equally, whatever, man. I'm fine with it because one of the biggest moments that helped set up the A-League in the early years was, and it was a player and a coach, it was a different situation, but Muskie and Cosmina, man,
that's right,
going at each other.
And that created that rivalry.
People talked about, it was a different world back then, but that was a big deal.
I agree, yeah.
Helped form the rivalry.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to seeing Stadge and Dillers go at it next time.
Yeah, exactly right. And I think that anything that adds a little bit of spice to the fixture is good. And it was fine, I think.
Both coaches had a bit to say. Well, in one case, not much to say about the incident. Let's have a listen.
It all got a bit fiery at the end there. What was said between you coaches towards the end?
It's all handbags, it's nothing.
A bit of that. But it shows the passion that you have for this team, doesn't it? I mean, you're fronting right to the very end there and taking it to the coach as well.
Nah, it's got nothing to do with that, to be honest.
No?
So,
That's just two coaches there with a bit of emotion at the end of a match. It's all good. So it's part of football. It happens. It just shows emotion and passion, and that's what this game's about.
So, first leg, victory Auckland. Tommy, victory at home. They need to get a decent advantage here, knowing that, they're going to head to a pretty hostile atmosphere.
I think so. I think if you look at Auckland's record at home, and, they're obviously going to have an expanded capacity for this finals game as well, you can probably expect a pretty tough place to go for your second leg. I think if you're going to that second leg needing to win, it could be really difficult. I think that for Melbourne Victory to have a realistic chance of winning this tie, they probably need to win this game this weekend. And, with their home crowd behind them, they're every chance. I mean, we saw Auckland beat them, obviously, in the final game of the season, but I think Melbourne Victory weren't poor in that game. It was more just not taking advantage of the opportunities they created. So, I think this is going to be a really tight one to call, and what a contest it's going to be.
Auckland, will they be happy they had the week off, do you think? They didn't finish the regular season particularly well.
I think so. I think it would have given them a good chance to reset because, they obviously won the league, and then their last game of the season was probably, you could say it was a little bit of a hangover. They're probably minds were elsewhere, looking towards the finals, not wanting to get injured. All these things are kind of playing on your mind. So I think that, Corica would have sat the team down after that, what was a terrible performance in their final game, and said, look, clean slate, boys, now. We've done nothing, that's all behind us. And they would have just looked to prepare the team as well as they could for this fixture. And, I'm sure they'll be coming in very fresh. I think the game, we saw Azani in the cramp, I think the game against Wanderers would have taken a physical toll on the Victory. Obviously, they have a good recovery time, but at the same time, I think that Auckland, there's no excuses going into this game.
Yeah. Tommy, Juan Mata, we talked about him earlier, did some media this week talking about the Common Goal initiative that he's behind in conjunction with the PFA. I was there, and here's some of what Juan had to say about his time in Australia so far and his future.
Juan, how would you assess your first and hopefully not last season in Australia, both yourself personally and also what you've seen more broadly in terms of the league?
Well, I'm very happy that I made the decision of coming here for many reasons. One of them is days like today and the potential that the sport has in the country, and in a personal level, to be part of that, hopefully, growth of the sport is something that fulfills me and gives me a deeper meaning of being here. I learn a lot about what the sport represents in the country, the history of it, and the present, the different clubs, the players, the culture here. On a professional level, we've made the finals, and I think we've made a step forward into the club's, the Wanderers' vision of being the best club in Australia. I had a great experience in terms of meeting so many new people that I love. The guys at the dressing room are great. We are like a family in there, and the culture in the club and the values are really good. And to feel part of something like that is also fulfilling. It was a pity, the last game, that we lost against Victory. We were in a good momentum, winning so many games, not losing for so long, and then in the most important game at the season so far, lost at home, and it was sad to see so many supporters that they had hope in us winning the grand finals, but the club will be there again for sure, and they will try to win it. So yeah, positive in that sense. In terms of playing time, it has been a bit frustrating. That's the way it is when you don't play as much as you would like many other teammates in my team. I'm in a time in my career that I also realized the impact that you can have in a football club, not only by playing. So, whether I played more or less, I try to give my best for the teammates, for the club, for the supporters, for football in Australia. and that's something that still motivates me.
Do you think you still have more in you? And do you know when you'll make a decision about whether you want to stay not only with the Wanderers but just in Australia in general?
I enjoy playing football a lot. I enjoy waking up in the morning and going to training, being with my teammates. Still enjoy the football part of it, the game itself. It's a great life. It's a blessing to love football and being able to still be fit enough and hungry enough to enjoy the game. And of course, I'm competitive. I want to play. I want to win. That's what has keeping me driven during my career, and I still have that hunger. So yes, I still enjoy playing, and I think I will still do.
You think that'll be the Wanderers one?
I don't know. I don't know that. We're having conversations, and I'm thinking about it now. I need to also think about my family and personal decisions. But let's see. I loved being here. I love the way that the Australian football fans had embraced me and my family and all the respect that they show. So I enjoyed very much that part of my stay here.
It's grand final week this week in the Ninja A-League. Let's hear from Amy about what's cooking on Dub Zone.
Well, this week on Dub Zone, Melbourne City toppled in a chaotic semi-final as the Mariners pull off the all-time upset. Victory did it easy against the Reds to set up a mouth-watering grand final, and Victory's Emily Gilnick and Mariners' Taylor Ray join us ahead of the decider. Teo Pellizzeri and two-time Ninja A-League champion Teresa Polias will join us again. What stood out from the semi-final as we head into the big dance tee?
That controversial goal by Izzy Gomez in the Mariners' massive win.
Melbourne Victory under the radar yet again. How do you score 6 across the semi-finals and still be the second story? So much to look forward to unpicking the grand final.
And a preview of the big dance. That's all ahead on a huge edition of Dub Zone. Catch us on the A-League's app, website and YouTube channel, along with 10Play.
Should be an amazing game. Tommy, let's rip through some extra time to finish off, mate. Starting with, who is the most clutch player you've ever played with?
Has to be Tim Cahill, right? I think all Socceroos fans would agree with that. I mean, in the big moments, it was always him, wasn't it? I never played with him, but I think if you're looking at A-League perspective, I think it's hard to go past Berisha, in the big moments. And, if you weren't on his team, he's probably the most disliked player in the league just because of that. I think he always was just there to rub it in your face as well when he did it. So, no, I think it would be Berisha from the A-League and just broadly Tim Cahill.
I'll back you on both. Isais and Yavi Lopez have retired from Adelaide United. What will their legacies be, do you think?
Oh, amazing. I think Isais, obviously, we remember the great goal he scored in the grand final and, just the way he played the game. I think beautiful player to watch, and both have been fantastic servants to Adelaide and to the league. And I don't know, there's something about Adelaide with their foreigners. All the foreigners seem to go there and love it. And
well, these two are staying on as coaches, which is one of the coolest things, I think, about Adelaide in particular, is this happens.
They do this really well, and I think it does have a good kind of family feel around the club. But, these are two vastly experienced players, and, to have them involved with the club, bringing through the young players, I couldn't think of two better players to do that.
Socceroo Aiden Hrustic is not having a good time in Europe at the moment. Do you agree with my opinion that he should come back to the A-League, in particular to Melbourne Victory?
And you said it as well, on a World Cup year, I think that would be an awesome fit. And I think Melbourne Victory would be the club. I think that he's a Melbourne Victory player. We spoke about the big characters, the big personalities. He kind of fits that mould and, technically awesome. I mean, we've seen for the Socceroos what he's done. I think it'd be so good to see him back in the A-League, and hopefully it can happen.
Two others I'll throw at you who I think might be a shout of coming home. The time might be right for both. One is Craig Goodwin, who's definitely leaving Saudi.
Yep.
The other is Mas Luongo, who's crossed off the Premier League from his list.
Yeah.
I'd love to see him back here.
Imagine, I think him in a Sydney FC jersey,
Just feels right,
that's
doesn't
a match made in heaven. Obviously, Sydney boy. I think that would be awesome to see. If they could get it done, be all for it. And Craig Goodwin, I can't see him going anywhere but Adelaide. But I think if he's available, Adelaide should definitely get him. We all know how good he is.
Yeah. This one's right in your wheelhouse, Tommy. Travis Scott had his logo on the Barcelona jersey for El Clasico.
Yep.
Which musician should have their logo on which A-League club shirt?
I've got one. It's Tame Impala on a Perth Glory shirt. I love Tame Impala, and that's a bit of a psychedelic theme on the Perth Glory shirt. I'd
would
be all
work with
for
those
that.
colours too,
I think
reckon.
it'd be cool. Yeah. Well, who's yours?
Well, I'll chuck two in, given we sort of cooked up all these ideas ourselves together. Hilltop Hoods, Adelaide United, although that is extremely 2005, but that's okay. And Lord, Auckland FC.
Yeah, that's a good
I don't know if she's into football, but jump on board now, Lord, because, grand final, think she's promoting a new album.
That's right. Match made in heaven.
I'm just saying.
Yeah. How good.
Very good, Tommy. Thanks for your contribution once again, mate. Look forward
Pleasure.
to breaking it down with you next week. See you again on Total A-League.